Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss the legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedoms and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties, education, and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedoms.
The Supreme Court set aside 3 days, 6 hours of oral argument on the historic ObamaCare case. Liberty Counsel has been right involved in that case from the very beginning. We've been battling it for 3 years and 2 years in court. I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, this ObamaCare case has been going on now for at least 3 years. We began battling this in 2009, right after the new Congress was seated following the 2008 election. And President Obama and the Congress at that time that came in the 2008 election began pushing this all the way through 2009. Remember, on Christmas Eve of 2009, December 24, the United States Senate passed its version of Obamacare, and then it went into the new year after the Christmas break. And then the House came back. They passed the Senate's version, and then on March 23, 2010, that law was signed by President Obama, and it was on that very day. We didn't have even a breath of time for relaxation. We went right into the federal courts as the first private lawsuit filed on the very first day it was signed into law.
It's not surprising to me that Obamacare is less popular than ever, so much so that just recently, a little over a week ago, we marked the second anniversary of Obamacare, and you heard neither nor hair from the Obama administration. This is his signature achievement. This is one of the biggest things that a president has done in terms of a federal power grab, certainly from our perspective, in decades. Yet this president didn't tout it, didn't advertise it. They just pretended that it didn't even exist. Well, they glossed right over it.
They actually did an email. We did an email on the anniversary of March 23, 2012. And our email, the subject line said, "Lord, deliver us from Obamacare." Right. We also got an email the same day from the Obama's campaign and from the Organizing America organization that sends out emails. And it had an explicative at the very beginning, blank. I won't say it on the air because it's banned by the FCC.
It's a big blanking deal.
And yes, that I like Obamacare. So
yes.
It was when those things came in your email almost side by side, it was an interesting contrast between our prayer and their explicative. Right. Our prayer against Obamacare and their explicative saying that they favored Obamacare.
But that was pretty much it. I mean, there weren't any big ceremonies. The president didn't do a big press conference to talk about this signature achievement and so forth. It was really under the radar for such a
I mean, and there's a good reason why. And the second day of oral argument last week focused on the individual mandate, which is really the core issue at stake. I mean, there's other issues. Liberty Counsel, in our case, Liberty University versus Geithner, which is currently pending at the United States Supreme Court, which actually teed up the very first day of argument on the Anti-Injunction Act, which specifically came from our case that put it before the court. We have the individual and the employer mandate that we've challenged. It's the only pending case at the Supreme Court that challenges both. But what was actually argued was one of those two, which was the individual mandate. And that really is a central core piece of this legislation. And for the first time in history, despite what Jeffrey Toobin says on CNN, and he got me fairly upset with his analysis, because what he said is if the court ultimately strikes down Obamacare, although he described it in a different way, he said that the court would be abandoning 80 years of decisions, 80 years of precedent, and that this conservative court might just abandon 80 years of precedent. And then he said we have Medicaid and Medicare. Well, Jeffrey Toobin knows better. Medicaid and Medicare are not Commerce Clause cases. They are taxing and spending, and they are voluntary. You do not have to have Medicaid, and you do not have to accept Medicare. Those are voluntary. If you accept them voluntarily, then you're under the obligations. this is not taxing and spending. This is the Commerce Clause, and it regulates commerce or interactions of commercial activity, typically between the states. And in this case, you are forced to participate in it. And that is unique. And Jeffrey Toobin and no one else can find any place in American history or Supreme Court laws or jurisprudence where there has been any validation where Congress can force you to buy any product. And that's what Obamacare does for the very first time.
Yeah, he threw a red herring out there. He's comparing apples to oranges because, as you point out, Obamacare is completely involuntary. This forces people, and that is the big question here at issue, not just whether or not there's any history of people using tax money to pay for government insurance programs, as with Medicaid, Medicare, and so forth. So it really is, this is completely a different issue, and Toobin was being disingenuous there.
Toobin was. I mean, and then Toobin also said that, well, there's people out there protesting, including what he called anti-abortion picketers. He says they're always here, even though their case is not before the court. And Toobin, again, just simply ignores Obamacare. Obamacare is the biggest funding of abortion in history. Not only does it have an individual mandate, which is unprecedented, forcing individuals who are law-abiding citizens of the United States to purchase a product of the government's own arbitrary design against their will, even though they don't want it, may not need it. That's unprecedented. If the government can do that, they can do anything. And then, in addition, this is the most anti-life legislation in history because it funds abortion in more than one way, and it's the first time ever that individuals have to pay directly to fund abortion. The $1 per month charge on individuals goes directly into a designated account for abortion, not some general account, an abortion account. And so it not only funds it in other ways, but it also requires direct funding of abortion. And it is the reason why the pro-life people are out there picketing, because of the atrocity that is being perpetrated both on life and on liberty with Obamacare.
I think it's the single most gross violation of our First Amendment liberties, and certainly in my memory, to compel Christian organizations, Catholic organizations, to violate their conscience and pay for procedures that are considered mortal sins. Abortion, certainly within Christianity, to take innocent human life, that is a mortal sin. And how dare the federal government force, and not just Christian organizations, but every single individual to be complicit in abortion homicide by providing hard-earned money out of their own pocket to go into a pool, a kitty, to cover abortions for women, specifically earmarked for that. And not only does it violate the First Amendment, I mean, it flies in the face of the Hyde Amendment, provisions that have been set up to... Which
is why they didn't want the Hyde Amendment to apply to this, and the Hyde Amendment doesn't apply.
Right.
And if you think back...
But the spirit of the Hyde Amendment, the spirit of the executive order that President Obama signed...
you think back into 2009, 2010, when... Senator Ben Nelson, he was opposed to Obamacare because of the abortion funding. And then the president convinced him, well, I'll have this executive order not to fund abortion, but I don't want the Hyde Amendment to apply. We all said that was bogus.
They got Stupak to sign on.
And Stupak to sign on, both in the House and Senate. They had these people that were holdouts. They ultimately changed. And we said that was bogus because it was not worth the paper it was written on. And here we go. We got the HHS mandates that come out and require abortion funding of religiously affiliated employers or organizations, and then now tax directly on individuals.
Yep, exactly. Well, real quickly, going back, you mentioned the Organizing for America, their I Like Obamacare that came out. I don't know if people are listening Twitter, but they created a hashtag I Like Obamacare for people to have after their comments on Twitter. It was taken over by those opposed to it, backfired to those opposed to Obamacare, and a number of the things that were coming out. I like Obamacare because it removes individual liberty, because it, and people started listing all the things. So that really backfired. They're just simply, President Obama, aren't that many people that like Obamacare.
Well, and usually when you have an unpopular piece of legislation, once it gets passed, goes into effect, the popularity starts to increase. Not so with Obamacare. It's continued to increase. Well, continue to keep this case in your prayers. Last week, the justices heard arguments, and they also got together confidentially and voted. We don't know which way they voted, but now we're in the writing phase, beginning this week and continuing on to the end of June. things can happen even though they voted one way or another. People can change their minds in the middle of the vote, in the middle of the writing phase. So we want you to pray for this decision. It is historic. It is significant for the future of America. You can call Liberty Counsel or go to the website, lc.org or 800-671-1776 and ask for our bumper sticker, Lord, deliver us from Obamacare, and seriously pray about this case. Go to our website as well, and make sure you sign up for the Awakening 2012 on April 20 and 21 in Orlando, Florida. Right there on the website, click on it. Over 60 national religious and political speakers in Orlando, April 20 and 21.
You have been listening to Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedoms. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.